Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the April 4th. I was looking at our approval, our minutes. The April 4th meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. Kate, could you call the roll, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve Hinnick.
Speaking.
Mitzi Rosillian. Tracy Miller. Jennifer Peterson, she's excused. John Reardon. Bobby Stauffer. And John Weitzel.
Great. Well, terrific. We have a quorum. Tonight, do we have any public comment on any of the items tonight that you might want to discuss prior to? Seeing none, we move immediately to our Basin Creek Caretaker's House. Could we have a little update on the progress, please, Kate?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, should we start with the minutes?
You know what? The approval of our minutes of March 7th. Is there any additions, subtractions, corrections that we might want to make to those minutes? Hearing none, I would move that we approve the minutes of the March 7th Historic Preservation Commission. Do I hear a second? Tracy Miller is seconded. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes have been approved. Now, if anyone from the public would like to comment on any of our agenda items prior to, keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Hearing none, we'll move on to the Caretaker's House project update at Basin Creek. Kate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I do have a new picture there. I know I've also got my dog in the corner, but I took a drive out yesterday. As you can see, we're buried under snow. But the good news is that our contractor, John Snyder, has put in all of the large windows. So they're all in. He doesn't have them trimmed out as far as the trim around the exterior, but he has all the windows in. As you can see, the two new ones on top. He's just, so we're not finished, obviously, and as you can see, there's a ton of snow out there, but we are definitely getting there, and the windows are all inserted, and the one to be restored has been restored and placed as well. So, yeah, and for my part, with the National Register nomination, it's going a little slower than I'd like. Things always come up, but I am definitely trudging through the research as well to get that prepared by September when it is due. So we're still basically, should be finished around mid-spring. I know, well, it is spring. It doesn't look like spring, but it is spring. So by late spring, early summer, he's hoping to be completed with everything.
And it looks like, well, hopefully we don't get any vandalism up there between now and then, because it's always been scary up there.
Yes,
But it's moving right along. It looks good.
It does, and we would like to get some rock screens on those as well,
Sure.
because that is certainly a concern with this investment. So.
Yeah, the crime shield. Okay, well, thank you very much. Any comments for our esteemed HBO? Moving along, our staff member report. Anything new to report, Kate?
Yes, thank you. I just have a few things. The Praxis Center is moving forward in 2 locations, with an S, not location. And they are consulting with WET, the engineering firm, who has consulted with me requiring cultural, in regard to cultural requirements. So there are 2 specific areas that they're looking at. I mean, we'll let you know more soon. Actually, I'm working with Chairman Rosillian, Commissioner Rosillian, on getting some archaeological testing done in the area. So we had a pretty devastating fire here in Butte at 901 South Colorado Street. The house was essentially a complete frame building, and the safety exclusion has been utilized for this. So it came about because the fire marshal, Mr. Kelly Lee, determined that it was completely unsalvageable. So as that is a part of our ordinance, I thought I would let you all know. Yeah. Another thing, so we had a meeting recently last week, the Butte National Park Initiative with the National Park Service on the phone. Several representatives of the National Park Service were on this Zoom call, and there were a few takeaways, including that we can either pursue a special resource study, these things can take up to 3 years apparently, or a reconnaissance study for Butte National Park, which would be quicker, but all these things have to happen at the request of Congress, essentially. Everything has to happen as an act of Congress. Another person that was sitting on this committee is a representative of National Heritage Areas, which is another National Park Service heritage study that they do. She thought that Butte would actually be a really good fit for this National Heritage Area. Of course, this would also this would require a feasibility study, most likely, and also requires authorization from Congress. And as an aside, I was involved with the one that they tried to get going in Great Falls, and it was a lot of work and didn't work out and was rather heartbreaking at the end of the day. But hopefully we have better luck for Butte. Finally, regarding the Jacobs House, I told you last month that we had that flood in the basement there, and all the toilets cracked, and it was just pretty devastating. But as it turns out, we did have a meeting with an engineer from Staley, and we did a walkthrough of the house and the basement. And the report, well, we haven't gotten the report back yet, but this happened right after our last meeting. But the good news is that it was a rather positive outcome. He believes that essentially we might have to move some dirt around on the outside and change the landscape on the outside to encourage more positive drainage, to get moisture away from the building, and that will essentially, save the building in the long run. And he didn't see anything completely devastating about the basement and what was going on there. So one final thing that's not on there. So this might be our last live streamed meeting, if that's okay with everyone. Our IT department has been very kind to come in and stay after work and run these meetings for me, but essentially me being only one person, I couldn't do what he does from over here. So we are looking at some options, but there is a possibility that this might be the last time that we do the live stream. And of course, it's a public meeting. Anyone is welcome to come, and we will record it and do the minutes as we always do. So.
Yeah, that basement leakage over at the Jacob House, I ran into something like that down at Western Montana College, and if you dig down along the foundation wall, and there's a really great product you can apply to the exterior of the mason. It's a rubble wall, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And then you backfill in layers of compaction, and it really it solves the problem. And it's not necessarily localized to that building. A lot of homes around Butte, especially with the buildup of snow we've had, typically a 2% grade away from your foundation is what you want, but you can't always get that. So, but there are some products that in the long run would be beneficial. It's just that you have to excavate along that wall and apply this. It almost looks like a plaster, but it's waterproof, and it works good. It has down there at their old main hall building. Okay. Thank you, Kate. Any other comments for Kate about that? Terrific. Let's move into some new business. How about 200 North Main Street, Clearwater Credit Union, new construction? Exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is our new Clearwater Credit Union, the design review for this building itself, and this will be going up, where the old Wells Fargo sort of bank drive-through bank branch is currently. So that's a location there in Butte. And this is what it looks like from the side. And so essentially, we have been working with Clearwater and MWW Architects out of Missoula. And they've actually been really good working closely with, they came to see me. They brought their first concept, and we talked about it, and then they also did a meeting with some stakeholders around town. They bought us lunch at Metals Bank. We all talked about what we thought of this design. So here's an elevation. There's two of them here. Of the building. It's essentially going to be brick with these large arched windows. And somebody actually brought up to me today that it has a resemblance to, say, the Belmont Hoist House, or the Mountain Con, without the gable on the roof, of course. But those large arched windows are kind of reminiscent of those buildings here in town. And so this was the first rendering that they provided me. Well, maybe not the first, but kind of midway. And so they've since decided to go with a darker brick, sort of reminiscent of the Finland's darker brick, and they've put a decorative, some brickwork along the top. And I think that the building actually fits in nicely. And it is modern, but it is not modern like the Wells Fargo bank branch building is. And I think that they're planning on doing a lot of nice landscaping. They're planning on really emphasizing lighting in that area of town, which is essentially, there really is none. So I think that in that sense, I think that it fits in the size, the mass, the scale. And I think that it will be a nice addition to Butte's uptown. And I mean, a million miles above what we've got now on that corner as far as being appropriate for, for our landmark district, essentially. So here's a building that I recently noticed that I never noticed. It's 505 West Park. And I drive by it several times a day, and we have a building right across the street that's on our agenda today, actually. And I was, I just looked around behind me, and I was like, oh, well, this is a very similar style of a building, and, I always knew it was not original to the landmark, but I always just kind of thought, I never really thought much of it. It just fit in, essentially. And that's what I think that we have with this one. So with that, we have Claire here from MWW, and we have Paul from the credit union. So I would welcome any comments. If you have any questions, they're happy to answer them.
Thank you, fellow commissioners. It's an exciting project for our uptown. As I said once before, it's a very heroic design. It's something that taking on this corner is a difficult task because you've got actually a couple of different slopes coming together at one spot. You've got a slope to the east, and you have a slope coming from the north to the south, and handling that pedestrian entrance and the sheltering effect, as well as taking care of the parking lot behind. I see they've done a planter, kind of a grade change transition. And I think the darker brick, I think works very good with the terracotta and dark red of the Hennessy building across the street. I think at this point, the design of the building coincides with what they're asking for public monies, which I believe is the landscaping and public amenities portion of the project. But I would, as an architect, I think it's exuberant, and I think they have a cornice line, a metal cornice, and I think all in all, it works. The arches on the Hennessy building coincide to that. Their side entrance, as well as the two-story space on Main Street, also have that kind of arch top, which there's not a lot of gingerbread on it, but on the other hand, it does have the shapes that coincide to some of the historic values we have uptown. So I would open it up to some conversation about it. If you, is that correct on what they're asking for, the potential funding for street trees, exterior lighting, reconstruction of the sidewalks, et cetera? Okay. Yes, John Reardon.
Thank you. The funding, is that coming from URA? Is it URA money? Wonderful, yeah, yeah. And I have to agree with you. I mean, it's a newer looking building, but I mean, the windows and the look of it is somewhat, not really modern, but I mean, the windows and that blend in. And if you really look across at the Northwest Energy building that is right across the street, I like this much more than, and I think it's a great plan, and I agree that it will be, you know, a big thing for Uptown Butte, you know, and especially with the all brick veneer, I think that sells it, you know. So thank you.
John Weitzel, you have the floor.
Thank you. You know, one of the things I think the building's absolutely gorgeous. I think it's just maybe a great addition to Butte. The only thing I have a problem with, and this has nothing to do with the architecture or anything, is the bump out for the sidewalks. I've been staunch. They always look good, but once they're utilized, if Broadway and Montana and Main Street were a lot wider, I can understand it. But you have snow removal, and if you look right there at those cars, like I said, I don't want to get off on, because like I said, I just don't really, is there some way you can narrow that down so that's not like a huge island out there? Because when you got big trucks and you got construction going, and when you got traffic, those bump outs take up a lot of room for traffic. And it also puts the pedestrians at a more precarious place because they're standing further out in the street. Like it says, if Broadway Street was 200 feet wide, or Granite Street, excuse me, was 200 feet wide, I can understand it, but it's not that wide to begin with. And so, and they were talking about putting these all around in Uptown Butte, and when you still have to have all your delivery trucks and essentials, it just narrows the radius for the big trucks to turn. And if there's just some way we can narrow that down, I mean, that's not our historical position. I mean, this is more for the Public Works Department, but I just think that island out there for the pedestrians is a little bit too large for the size of the streets that we have. But other than that, the building is beautiful.
Would you like to come up and introduce yourself? We appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Thanks. Thanks, John. So we're working with DJ&A. They're a civil engineering firm, and they are designing the bump outs for the entire intersection. So this rendering that we developed at MMW is potentially not exactly accurate to what they will design. They will analyze the entire intersection and design the bump out to hopefully alleviate any of those issues you talked about.
Yeah. Like I said, because our streets here in Butte are too narrow. I mean, I know some people were talking about actually putting roundabouts in, like on Park and Main Street, which would be a disaster because people always forget is that we need big trucks to make all of our deliveries all the time. Mm-hmm. And my father was a milkman, and I'm very much aware of all this driving around these places. And like it says, if it was a wider street, that'd be no problem, but our streets are so narrow as they are. And it just, they say it's a safety issue, but you're getting the pedestrians further out onto the street. And Butte, Montana's got some of the worst drivers in the world. And they cut corners, they don't use their turn signals. I ride my bicycle all the time, and that's just more of a hazard. But anyway, that's my little peeve there. And one other little thing there, are you going to put a gargoyle on the building at all?
We don't have plans for that currently.
Okay. It's an open thought, though. Think about it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Tracy Miller, would you have the floor, please?
I think this is a beautiful project. I love that. I love that it fits in, but it's obviously new construction, because I think that is better than trying to completely replicate something that was never there, obviously. The one suggestion that I had, and more of a question of whether you would consider, is that going to be wood on the bump out, the overhanging awning? Underneath of the whole awning bump out?
Correct, that will be wood.
What do you think of pressed tin?
Oh, sorry, is it brass pin?
Like a pressed tin
pressed
instead of
tin.
wood? I mean, just a thought for a historic look. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's something we could consider.
And I would say you guys weigh in. I'm the newest member of this, so I don't know as much historical. I'm still learning. But I just think like the wood to me looks a little bit more, I don't know, modern? Yeah, that's all.
Right, and
Beautiful.
I think that's the point. They wanted to make it look, it illuminates it a little bit more. It's kind of like, I don't know if you ever saw the Howard Rourke building in the Fountainhead, where he did a modern building, and a committee decided to put gingerbread all over it, and it kind of destroyed the intent of the design, particularly. If indeed this was going to be a historic, for instance, how about a performance area or a new, venue like that that's going to be a Victorian-style theater or something, where you wanted to evoke a Victorian feel to it, then maybe that would be appropriate. Like I say, the underside of the wood, it kind of it gives it lightens it up a little bit more. So, I mean, that's just the way I see it. And now, Tracy, you have that's your opinion too, the pressed tin. And for instance, we've already torn down all the pressed tin canopies in town on East Park. If you've noticed that debacle down there lately. No offense to any architects in the building who worked on it, but still, it's too bad that all that has gone to waste. So that's just another counterpoint idea. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, so I think everything you said is true to our thinking of the wood on the underside of the awning. It's also, if you look inside the building through the arched windows, you can see the ceiling on the inside of the lobby is wood, and that'll have lights hanging down from the ceiling that light up the wood ceiling. So when you're standing on the street at night, you'll see the awning, the wood awning, and then also the wood ceiling of the lobby behind. So those things kind of work together in that way as well. And it ties into a little bit of Clearwater's branding too, and that transparency, welcome, natural materials. So
I hope that answers your question a little bit. Yeah. Do you have yes, Ms. Brazilian?
We have really 3 good projects on the agenda this evening, and I don't say that very often, so I'm really glad to see this project. And there were just a few, I know it's not your beeswax that DGNA are doing this, but I have to follow up what John said, and the fact that the words, as a traffic calming bump at this intersection, oh, the traffic be calm, it's a 4-way stop. That's about as calm as you can possibly get. So I really, this bump out thing, I understand where the county is interested in it, but it seems like calming belongs where calm is needed, and there ain't no calm needed at this intersection. But there were just a couple other things. I like the brick pattern, the diamond brick pattern that is underneath there, and I wanted some clarification from you on that. Is that just going to be brick color, or is that going to be brick sticking out that's a diamond pattern, or what is it going to look like?
So that's a good question. We've actually been looking at it both ways. Right now, I think we're leaning towards the brick all being in plain, but a slightly lighter color. But we have also rendered it. I think these renderings, it's a little hard to see, but these renderings show it sticking out, but it's the same color.
So I don't know if it makes any difference, and bricks sticking out a little bit over the years will cause some deterioration, but none of us will be alive in order to see that with the quality of brick that would be used on this. And so it would really accent it a little bit more, and that's probably one of my favorite features here, is you're using a very distinctive architectural design that is seen in this community and other communities, so I really appreciate that. The only other one thing that I would like to see, are on the rear windows. I would like to see an homage to double-hung windows. And they're fine, but if there was just a mutton bar in there, one mutton bar in each of those, it would really be reflective. You can see the Ellis Office Supply building, I think is what we're looking at in the distance. They're all 1/1, and there's just a lot of that in Uptown, and I think that would really, it's a minor thing, but I think it's something that would be, make it look nice.
We had that discussion actually, so I'll bring that back up again to our team. Because it would be a fake button because the windows aren't operable, but it would echo the double hung language that is around Butte more, I agree.
Are those, in that area, those are enclosed offices around this, your main space?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's correct.
Anyone else? Well, hearing none, I would move that we approve the design COA for 200 North Main Street with the suggestions as brought forth by our committee. I think the simulated double hung on the north elevation is valid. I think everything else looks good. I would move that we approve with those provisions. Do I hear a second? Tracy Miller has seconded. Any other comments or questions on the question? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Go in peace. Great job, guys. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to try to give him a call again and hope that Mr. Oliver picks up the phone this time. And if not, we'll just skip on to Corey's project here. But let me just try real quick. Thank you, guys. Wait a minute.
At the tone, please record your message. When you finish recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hi, Ken. This is Kate McCourt giving.
All right, let's move on to our design review COA of 22. Are we in the right area?
Hello. Is this Ken? Yes. Hi. We were just about to move on.
I'm sitting here watching this, and I'm like, wait a minute, my phone didn't ring. So I guess Verizon was doing a thing where it skips the call, it doesn't. So here I am.
That's okay. Great. No. This is perfect. Sorry, Corey. We'll go the normal way it is on the agenda then. Okay. So I'm going to. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna just give a little introduction of the project, and then folks will have questions for you. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. Okay. Well. So moving on, this is 224 West Aluminum Street. Gorgeous single-family home. It was built, well, it says pre-1916, post-1900. Maybe Ken knows the exact date that it was built, but it's been in his family for many years. So this is a kind of a family project. Ken Oliver lives in Bozeman, and he owns a very well-established woodworking business. So he knows his way around a bit of woodworking here. And this is essentially, this is where the building is located. Well, this is the footprint. You can see the lovely turret there on West Aluminum Street. Okay, and this is a close-up of the turret and this really cool oval window. Essentially, this project is going to be a full rehabilitation of this house. So he is going to be basically repointing the brick where it needs, and you can see, especially on this side, it definitely needs some repointing, and the corbels and the cornices on the parapet up here are going to be rebuilt as well. And he has somebody here in Butte, Chris from High Mountain Masonry, and I gave you the invoice, or the proposal rather, for the project, and it seems that Chris from High Mountain Masonry really knows what he's talking about as far as working with soft old Butte brick. So he has the intentions of essentially using a lime-based mortar. So he will be, he'll be tearing down and rebuilding the parapets on the east side of the house. They are going to be repairing the cracked and rotted brick, replacing, I guess, where it needs be as well. And I believe he has a source of brick to use as well, that matches, that is the soft brick. So that's the outside. They are going to be replacing the windows with, Ken, are they single hung or double hung? Or there's going to be two different kinds of windows.
The ones in the house are single hung. We'd like to get approval to do double hung, but if we got to keep it, original, then that's fine too.
Okay, all right, we'll talk about that. And then on the bottom of the house, the downstairs, they would like to use casement windows on the downstairs, so retaining that picture window look. And I gave you examples of the windows that they intend on using. They'd like to go with Marvin, so aluminum wood-clad windows for all of the window replacements, with the exception of this oval window here above the porch, which will be, Ken himself, I believe, will be, stripping and refurbishing himself. So all of the wood around the windows will be fixed and refurbished. The windows will be replaced with the exception of that one oval window. And then he will also be tearing out and rebuilding the porch to the specifications that it is now. So we've got these really cool kind of zipper. So here's the one side of the house, and that's a close-up of the porch that he will be rebuilding and reusing the posts, or the columns that are currently there. Possibly changing, I think he said, the balusters and making them a little bit nicer and more, more period appropriate than what they are here. They're just kind of rectangular blocks. One thing about the roof, he would like to do a standing seam metal roof. You cannot see it. He would like to use a sort of a dark bronze color. Again, it would only be able to be seen from the air. And he believes that's the best option for this, the most durable option for this house, which has kind of a low grade to it. So as well, there is, on top of the parapet, or on top of this is actually, this is an old image. I took photos the other day, and it does have what looks like a relatively current asphalt shingles. And so I think he would either keep those or he would replace them. He was thinking about even using like a wood shingle if need be, but he hasn't gotten up close enough to actually investigate whether or not it needs to be replaced. But they look pretty new to me from where I was standing. But, and Ken, have I pretty much captured everything?
Yeah, I think that all sounds good. I was just going to mention just repainting with the original kind of antique white color that you can't see in this picture. And I'm sort of guessing based on the old black and white pictures that they were off-white and not, stark white. And then with those aluminum exterior windows, they would be a dark bronze finish as well. And then it would be surrounded with the antique white trim that's original to the windows. I considered rebuilding the windows, but most of them are too far gone. There's only one or two that we could keep. And considering the house is also not a brick facade, but a full-on brick wall, there's no insulation in the walls. So we're trying to go as energy efficient as we can. With the standing seam roof, what I like about that as opposed to other roofing materials is the standing seam can float inside of the parapet and not have any effect on the breathability and the movement of the brick with the lime mortar. And it'll be really easy to waterproof, and it's a forever roof. It'll last a long time.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? I do have a question. This parapet wall on the street side facade, at least from the photograph I have here, it appears that there's an additional row of dentils up there that may be holding up. I don't know if that's I don't know what that is. There's snow on it. It's a small ledge. And then it looks lower than the other side. I guess the eventual question is you're going to either remove that, repoint it, and then are you going to do a metal coping cap on top of your parapet wall, or are you going to have a piece of masonry?
Well, so I do have some more research to do on that. What I would like to do is like a terracotta type cap that matches the bricks to go on there, but I haven't found one yet. Alternatively, we could have the metal from the roof on the inside come up, and then we would have, like a 1-inch border of dark bronze metal around the top of the brick. So I'm not sure which one of those two options we're going to go with. We also are rebuilding the old wooden gutters.
Yeah, that's what that is.
Oh, that's what that is.
Yeah,
It's a room,
holding up the
old wooden gutter.
I asked him the same question, didn't I?
It's a wooden gutter. And,
That's what that wood is sticking out. I'll work with the brick mason
well,
when
that's
we
what
tear down
it
the
must be a
parapet,
downspout
and
or
we'll
something.
make new metal flashed inserts for the wood framing to go in, so we can cantilever the gutter on the front face there and rebuild that cornice.
Yeah, thank you. Your coping cap has to span the top of your brick book parapet, and it does return down the wall. What we don't want necessarily like in this committee is any kind of covering the top of a parapet with a single-ply membrane, and it looks, we like it more of a finished look if you're going to do it. This building has had a conical roof all the time, or has that been is that something that was added? Was that new, or?
Gosh, I apologize. I'm having a really hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry.
He asked, Ken, he asked if the roof over the little turret there has always been conical. Just the one, just over the turret, yeah.
It's
Yep,
always
that
been there?
has.
Okay, that's all. Thank you. Mitzi has a comment.
So there are several things. I want to start with your brick contractor. And I think in addition to the items that were specified in the scope of work, I think we need to make it perfectly clear that there can't be any mortar on the brick face when the project is done. And also, because there's this interesting little dental pattern on the parapets, right below with the parapets, and in the back on the, I'm only going to say right side because I can't remember which direction.
This one?
Yes, you can see in the back it has been removed. And so as part of this project, it needs, I hope, it will be restored. But in any case, that dental pattern must be maintained no matter what the
Yes, ma'am.
but the other
Yep,
part,
we will be redoing that. I'm going to use the old 1950s photos. Those are the earliest ones we can find as sort of our template to what to do with this guy.
so I think the only thing that I would say about your contractor And I'm not going to talk about him specifically, I'm just going to talk about brick contractors in general in this town. They bear intensive scrutiny. When I looked on the Facebook page for this particular contractor, I saw almost no brickwork. It was all stonework, except for some brickwork where he did parging over the brick. And to me, that experience makes me have pause about what he can do, and that just means you can use any contractor you want, but it's up to you to be a bulldog with what we expect. So just wanted to say
ma'am.
that.
And I absolutely share your feelings on that, and I approached him the same way. I didn't like the work that was on his Facebook, but I didn't want to, put him in a category based on that. Maybe he's just not great with social media, who knows. But I did say, well, for one, Chris is the only guy who would call us back, and who would call us back and use the lime mortar and seem to be knowledgeable on the old style brick repair and installation. As we walked around the house, we had a 2.5-hour meeting talking about all the things we wanted to do, and it's very important to me that we maintain the old architectural details and that things are done in a quality and accurate manner. So I will be going through his bricks before he uses them. I will be there checking in with him. We're not just leaving him alone to, do his thing. So I will be monitoring this project very closely.
That's really commendable, and it's very reassuring, too. I did also want to talk to you about the metal roof. And in this case, I'm seriously considering it, even though this is not considered a precedence, because I'm considering it because your roof slope is probably something like 1/4 foot to 1 slope or something like that. But, and so it could never be seen from the street. However, I wonder if you could just reassure me that you know exactly which type of standing seam you should use. If you could tell me about your experience with using standing seam metal roof on a essentially flat roof.
Well, it's a 212 in the back, and I guess I don't know what you mean by experience. Have I put a standing seam metal roof on a 212 before? I have not, but I have put them on a bunch of buildings that down to a 4-pitch, and it held up nice. They don't hold snow. I imagine a 2-pitch would hold it, worse, but I guess I'm trying to pick the lesser of the evil, which in my mind, let's use TPO, for example, that expands and contracts at its own rate, and it's not the same as the brick. That is the reason that parapet has failed, is whoever put that rubber roof on before, in my opinion, did not know what they were doing. And that's the reason that parapet failed, in addition to the S-type mortar that was put there. I wanted the roof to sit separate from the brick, to sit on top, and there is a series of flashings that you can get with these steel roof kits, like J-metal on the side to keep the water from going past the roof, and then a 2-part flashing that goes up the parapet that will allow things to move. So nothing is connected. Everything can move independently. All fasteners are hidden, so there's no perforations in the roof. We have no venting going out the roof. It all goes out the walls. So I think it's a really safe bet. I think it's just going to sit there and keep the house dry forever.
Yeah, are you going to put will you have a gutter system on that? It would be the south side, if this is what, I don't know if this is on the...
Yeah, so there will be the wooden gutter off the parapet in the front, which catches the water off of the turret. And then on the back, unseen to the front, I was going to do the bronze half-round steel gutter, and then a round downspout for that.
Great. Yeah, the system you're talking about on your parapet is flashing, counter flashing, and a reglet, a surface-mounted reglet that covers the top of your counter flashing. And that probably would be surface-mounted unless you were going to route into the actual brick when you rebuild your parapets. Yeah, and, you know, I mean, I'm just doing a roof that, at 3/8 of an inch per foot, and so that they go all the way down to a fairly low slope. They're mechanically sealed.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I can't understand what you're
I'm
saying.
sorry, that's all right. You know, it's just gobbledygook anyway. It's important. But I do have confidence in low slope roofing when you have to have it. It's much, you know, at 2 and 12 is just one number away from being 3 and 12, where you could use actual shingles. That's the minimum slope for a shingled roof, 3 and 12. So
Right.
2 and 12 is adequate for a metal roofing system. Okay, any other comments? Mitzi has some more. Mitzi.
So, you sound very confident and very knowledgeable, and I really appreciate that. I would just like to say, because of the description of your porch section did not have a bunch of detail, but it said original likeness. I just want to verify that by original likeness, I think that means there will be a beadboard ceiling in the porch. The floor will be, I can't tell now, but presumably a Doug fir floor. The steps will be wooden, and it would be nice if there was some indication you could give us about the balusters, but it's not critical because I think you have the experience that we need. But I just wanted to verify that those are the elements that we are interested in. The ceiling, the flooring, the type of flooring that's used, the fact that wood steps and nothing but wood steps will be acceptable. And that's it.
Yep, I completely agree. I got some old vertical grain fir that is almost knot free. It's all old, or I'm sorry, it's all old growth wood, which is, and the reason I got that is I started tearing off some of the trim on the interior that was rotted, and it's all vertical grain, knot free cedar, and the floor we tore up 4 layers of carpet, and it's all fir. So I assume the decking would be fir. Same with the beadboard up top will be fir as well. But we're going to keep it that antique white painting. And yeah, we will maintain all of that.
Okay, and I have just one more question. I see, I understood that you were going to put casements in where there are now, I assume casements in that front turret, but you know, I'm sure by looking at it, that that is not the original, and I don't know how extensive your interior renovation is going to be. However, I wonder why you didn't consider putting double-hung windows in the first floor of the turret. That's my last question.
Well, I am considering double hung down there. I'm not completely sure. I knew for sure the upstairs were double hung windows, and downstairs I can absolutely tell. I mean, the interior of the house is horrendous. It's covered in dark paneling and everything's framed in. So the interior renovation is going to far exceed the exterior renovation. It needs a total redo. But the good news is most of the moldings are salvageable, and I got some custom knives made so we can recreate the exact profiles that it has inside. So I may do double hung down there. Again, I was thinking casement because they're the most energy efficient, and I'm just trying to create less air leaks in the house because there is no exterior insulation on the walls.
Okay, thank you. This is a really great project in a neighborhood that is challenged, and I appreciate your effort.
No, thank you. Yeah, we're excited about it.
Great. Anyone else wants to chime in? Well, hearing that, do I hear a motion to approve the COA as presented? The motion has been made by John Reardon.
I'll second.
And it's been seconded by Bobby Stauffer. Any other questions or anything, discussion on the question? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Well, congratulations, and we wish you the best in your project. He made a door.
Awesome. Thanks,
By
folks.
God.
He's gonna make a back door too.
Nice.
Love the door.
All right.
All right, thanks, Ken. I'm gonna keep sending people your way.
Oh, love it. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, got a couple of demo reviews here. We have a demolition review
Well,
for 504 West Park Street. Could
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
bring us up to date on that, Kate, please?
yeah, it's more of a, it's demo of a couple of porches. But it is mostly a design review because this is essentially another full restoration of a building that, if I may say so, is desperate. Let's put it up there, shall we? Yeah. This building's been in some trouble for some time, so you know, I think that we have a person who's bought it and who's willing to, you know, really put the time and money into it. And luckily, well, he lives in Hawaii, but luckily his contractor, Corey, is here, so we'll get him talking when you have questions. But essentially, you know, this building has been, like, within an inch of its life a few times. And so I kind of feel like it's, you know, if it were a cat, this would be its 10th life. So I think we really need to get this thing in repair. And essentially, we are talking about, I guess the brickwork is in decent condition. Well, you know, I mean, Corey can speak more to that. But what we're going to do here is essentially, we're going to rebuild the balcony, the porch on the front. And so, you know, if the columns can be somewhat saved, I guess they're not in really good shape. I think I've got a closer. It's all pretty much in rough shape, but if I had told Jess, the owner, that if we could save, like, you know, the any of the porch, you know, the turned spindles or anything, that would be preferable in some way. The windows themselves, so what we're going to do, what he's going to do, is, so we've got that front bay window there, the sort of, so facing the road, there's a cottage window up top. And the bottom, we're going to put a cottage window on the bottom as well to match. All of the other windows are going to be, I don't remember if they're single hung or double hung, I think single hung. And then the two little picture windows would remain as they are. But he's intending on replacing them with black clad Anderson 100 Fibrix windows. So that is the front. So I had written something about the porch itself, and how the door on the left, so the two doors are, one is the entrance to the bottom apartment and the other is the entrance to the top. And so with what they're going to be doing on the inside, and please interrupt me if I totally mess this up, but there's going to be a stairwell. When you enter the left door, there would be a stairwell immediately heading up to the right side of the house. And so what needs to happen, because of what's going on the inside, is they're going to raise the porch on one side up. So there's actually a transom above the door. It's very hard to see, but they're going to raise it about, just at 8 inches or so, up, so that basically the door is up into the transom itself. And you wouldn't really be able to notice very much because they can do it right behind that column, that center column right there, so it wouldn't be very noticeable. But the porch will be on two slightly different levels because of this interior stairs. We have examples of the doors at the end that he would like to use, and I believe he said he's going to replace all the doors in kind, whatever is chosen for the door. He's going to do all the doors the same. So here's more of a close-up of that upstairs. And then these are some elevations that Jess did. He's an engineer himself, so he did these quickly so that you could get a better visual, and you can see where the stairs is kind of on two different levels there, but it's slight. So now this is the back of the house, and this is where the other demo comes in, because he intends on removing this porch essentially altogether. And obviously it's, you know, it looks like matchsticks. But he's thinking of not building it back. Because he was thinking of having the yard just basically accessible to the downstairs tenant rather than building the porch back up. And that's, I could not get back there to get, obviously this is an old picture because otherwise it would be covered in snow, but so he's planned on essentially keeping the window, the fenestration pattern essentially the same, just the removal of that back porch. I'm doing the single hung windows with the small picture windows in the middle, and then having the same, whatever the same door from the front he would use for the back. And now we have this lovely west side here, where I think the intention is to change the fenestration to match the interior on this side, but it would be receiving entirely new siding, inside and out. So new boards on the inside, new clapboards. We talked about it, either wood if he can get it, or he would use the LP Smart Side Smooth. So that's dependent on what is available. This interesting little, whatever this is, this porch here that was, you know, this is gonna come down, obviously. And due to the interior structure of the building, he's going to be removing those upper windows, but then adding windows to the front portion, as you can see. Same kind of windows, same style window. And the reason is because that's going to be a kitchen on the upstairs, cabinets on the inside, and there'd be no place for those windows to be. But removing that door, where that funky porch is, and putting two windows down there instead of having the door there. So here are some options that he's looking at. Now, these are the style window that or door that he would like. So it's not to say most definitely that he would, you know, it's one or the other, but he's thinking of the black style with the panels, or he's thinking of the wooden with the 3/3. So these are the kinds of doors that he'd like to put on the house. He hasn't chosen an exact door yet. And that is my very brief overview. So I think if you have any more questions,
Great.
Corey's here, and he is the contractor for Jess Humphreys.
Well, my first comment is, you know, the thing about these columns, they make these reproductions very easily as far as, you know, a column cover or something. So I think if you did run into problems, I'm sure you can find something commercially available that would match up with that. The siding on that would be the west elevation. Obviously, that was either put over the brick, or is it just exposed like that? I wonder. Yeah, it could have collapsed at one time.
Same here.
Yes. Just give us your name and your association with the project.
I appreciate that the sun has chosen to find the smallest crack in that window to blind me. But my name's Corey Smith. I know the owner. He went to tech here, and so we met when he was at school here and just became friends. And so I'm doing him a solid. He does not deserve my help. But there's no brick behind that west wall. So that'll be torn off, and blue board insulation with OSB house wrap, all that. So
Yeah, we had before our commission, before the building directly to the east along that, I believe we talked about that once before as well. So, yeah. Anybody else? Yes, John Reardon.
Thank you, Steve. I think this is what we're all about, people, right here. I think if we have to sacrifice a porch here and all that, the integrity of this man, he's, you know, the work that they're going to put into this and all that. If we were the Humane Society, we'd be a hero. We're the Building Society. It seems like they're willing with the windows, they're willing with this and all that. And like I said, if we have to lose a piece of the porch on the back, and basically, I think the corrections he wants to make the front basically will further enhance the look of the building. You know, exposing the porch and making it look like it's not gonna fall down. And it's right on Park Street. It's a great old house and obviously structurally sound, otherwise we wouldn't be here. It would be at the landfill. And I think this is a great deal for Uptown Butte. And I wish you all the success in the world. I wish in Butte that we could save more of these and all that stuff the way that they are. So, like I said, we got to give and take a few things here and there to make these buildings feasible, and the people that want to do the work that they can afford them. We're not giving away the ranch here, but I don't see no problem with losing a porch and putting a few windows here, different windows on the west side or whatever. So I just want to thank you and your partner for your effort, and I back you 100%. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? John Weitzel?
This is just a question out of rent, that this is gonna be rentals?
You know, it's actually his intention to come back to Butte. So
okay.
it's an over-under duplex, and his intention is to actually occupy the upper unit. So this is his ticket back to Butte. He's a petroleum engineer working on a ranch in Hawaii. He bounces around, and yeah, exactly. He was out in North Dakota, and then once COVID hit, they
Yeah, the reason why I'm
contract.
asking is just that, with the fire codes and everything, if you in this day and age, you have to have two entrances on the buildings like that.
Sure.
So, but if he's gonna live in the whole thing, it's irrelevant, I guess, so.
No, his intention is to occupy the upper unit, and so the upstairs, we may need to address, because it does have that balcony door, we may need to address some sort of egress from that. I don't know what his plan is there, but, the rear deck is falling off the building.
Oh, sure.
In my opinion, I have rentals here in Butte, and I would not want rear access from an alley on Park Street that I would have that thing gated off like crazy. There's a lot of, it's currently boarded up trying to, keep it secure, but I don't personally like the idea. If I was wanting to live there, I wouldn't want someone to be able to walk up and come into my windows or doors or anything, personally. But regardless, the deck has to come off, and then we'll address, the roof at that time with, it's cantilevered out, and that'll get cut back, and gutters and all that. So
Does this property next door?
that's part of this property as well.
Usually for garbage removal, you have these big hunkin' cans that I think they bring them onto Park Street, I believe, for their pickup, if I'm not mistaken. I believe they do. So, obviously they can pull them from the back. You can't really have them sitting out in front, so you need a way to bring them around. So if he does own the property, that facilitates that.
So the ugly porch that you see on that west side right there was actually designed for demo, and it's a slide from the upstairs, and it's a ramp from the downstairs. It's actually just two windows, and so that'll obviously go away. But I've actually backed my dump trailer right in there, and you can easily remove all the debris that way as well. So it's nice access.
I was just
that way.
thinking on a day-to-day basis for the occupants there, you have to put these garbage cans somewhere, and so you just can't leave them on Park Street all the time.
Right.
So having an access way along the side with that property makes it advantageous.
Yep.
Anyone else have any comments on this project? Mitzi?
Thanks. I know a lot about this property. I walk by it at least 5 times a week. So, and I've seen, it is really great that you have someone that you're working with that really wants to do something with this building. It is an important building because it is on Park Street, and not only that, the building that is just to the west on the other side was a building that was saved several years ago from demolition. So people have paid attention to this particular area, and it's really a great project. Even so, I have some thoughts. One is concerning the columns. I don't know if you're familiar with a product called Abitron, But it's a wood epoxy. It is the only wood epoxy for historic preservation. I have used it. I know somebody on Park that used it to stabilize his columns. They look like glass right now. And so I would encourage you to investigate that product.
Okay. Yeah, the way that these were built, I mean, it's just like about a 2-inch wide slat that's cut at like a 5-degree angle, and it's just kind of built around. So I don't know structurally what's behind that. We just have to make sure first and foremost that it's safe, because that is a balcony, not just a roof that's up there. So, you know, we will have to remove those columns one way or another to rebuild what is underneath that. You know, I assume that it's based off of how the rest of the building was built. I assume that it's some laminated 2x4s going up there, and so we'd like to replace that with a more secure
4x4.
post that's going down into concrete. So,
Okay, thank you. There was some question about the cottage window on the first floor and whether or not you can find a supplier in town, and I don't really want to seem like I am supplying you people with the names of contractors, so if you could stay until the end of the meeting. There is someone in town who has done it and made it a true cottage window with a real mutton bar in there, not a fake mutton bar, and he has done it for numerous historic preservation projects in the past. So I know that he can do it again, and so I would encourage you to do that, because whether or not you use him or someone else, it's got to be a real mutton bar, not a fake mutton bar in the cottage window.
okay.
You didn't talk about the exposure on the wood on the west side, and that's important for historic preservation purposes. So right now, it's a drop siding, which you can get wood drop siding. It's very expensive, and it would be great if you did that. But assuming that you're not, and that you're going to use LP or some other wood siding, the rule that we use is that it has to be no greater exposure than 6-inch, and we would prefer 4-inch. This is 6-inch, I assume, right now, this exposure. So we have to have that understanding, and that needs to be kind of written into our understanding of what you're going to do on this project.
Okay.
I am disappointed with the no windows on the second floor in the main section over there, and I understand why it's being done, but it does take away from the historic character of this building, unfortunately. But I can live with that, and I don't care about no stinking back porch, because it's really unattractive, and I'm glad to hear that you're going to cut the overhang back, because the whole thing could just fall down on somebody otherwise. But the last thing I have to say is concerning the doors. And the doors that are the preferred doors are Craftsman-style doors, and this is not a Craftsman house. This predates Craftsman by a generation or two. And I did look to see what Feather River Doors had available, because that was the one that they looked at. And they do not have what I think would be perfect and suitable for this is sort of the door that you have now, which is a single pane over double or solid pane or wood panel. Those are really hard to come by in this age, but there is one that Home Depot carries for Feather River Door that's a lighthouse in their lighthouse collection, and it's a single door that has a 4-light over a 2-panel. It's fiberglass. It comes in cocoa, which I guess is the closest thing to what you have, and it's got low E clear glass in it. Those are the sorts of things that would really make this appropriate for that particular building.
And he's not married to this, honestly. He's trying to do what is appropriate, and so within, he doesn't have deep pockets. He's he's a young kid that is an engineer, and he's not got hundreds of thousands of dollars just running around. In fact, he's using Clearwater to finance the project. But it's he's open to those types of suggestions as long as it's within certain cost analysis for him. But
and they're a little pricey. They're in between the two that you have shown in this particular image. And they are fiberglass as opposed to wood, which is why the one on the right is so much more expensive.
Right.
But it would be great to have a door that was of the appropriate time period in each of the openings, that especially, not so much on the rear elevation, but definitely on the primary facade.
Yeah, and I think he'd be very open to that.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mitzi. Anyone else have any comments for Mr. Smith? Yes, Bobby.
I'll just say thank you and to you and the owner. I thought for sure this one would have to be torn down, so I was delighted to see it on our agenda, and I'm really excited that it's going to get fixed up. So good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
We've run through several of these projects on West Park, and a couple of them have never come to fruition, and we're hoping that this one will. We did one across the street. They were going to replace the columns and all that stuff. I don't think anything's happened yet. So I would entertain a motion to approve this COA for 504 West Park with the proviso that a more appropriate, historically compatible door be considered for the front elevation, and that the siding to the west, on the west elevation, fall within the guidelines that Mitzi outlined, being between 4 and 6 inches in exposure. Do I hear a second to that? Tracy Miller is working her tail off tonight, seconding these things. Do I hear we already got it seconded, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Great. Good project. Good luck. All right. Well, that improves the corridor. They've been trying to improve this corridor to Tech for a long time, and every little bit helps cleaning it all up, you know. Okay. 200 North Main Street. Hey.
Hey.
We've been here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't feel like they needed to be here for this part of it, so I thought we'd have one at the beginning and then just do the DOE at the end. This should be a pretty quick discussion. Essentially, we've got this building sitting here at the end. We know what is going to be replaced. I did some research with the Sanborn, and well, we know that it was at one point a very beautiful large block called the Beaver Block. And actually, traditionally, it was a bank. There was the Silver Bow National Bank, and that was there for many, many years, up until, and this was the bank with a nice X through it, and it says raised above it, so in case there was any doubt that this building is no longer there. This was what it looked like, but at some point in the early 60s, this was raised, and this was what was going on basically right before they took it down. It was no longer a bank. The S's indicate stores, so they just were shops in there, I would imagine. And then obviously after 1957 and before 1969, it was taken down, and this was what was built in its place. So Claire was saying that it would have been a Wells Fargo even then. I don't see any indication on it that it is a Wells Fargo, but I will take her word for it. So this is around 1969 was the original part of it. There are still some aspects of the lot. There's a chain link fence. There's a few, on the cadastral that are dated to 1969. However, the current building that is there today, despite the fact that it was built on the same spot and with the same material, actually, we think that this is all that remains of that original bank right here, the outlined, the highlighted parts, and that also came from WMM. They provided me with the original blueprints of the bank from the 90s when it was completely renovated, and they believe from the blueprints that these yellow spots are the only bit that's left over from the original bank. Oh, and that's the end. So, considering that I think it should be a pretty short consideration, I would definitely believe that this was not eligible for the National Register. The Sanborns, the cadastrals say that the current bank building was built in 1993. So with that being said, it says bank drive-in and canopy. So when they renovated the bank, it was really more like a complete rebuild, including with the canopies for the drive-in. So with that being said, I would say that this bank is not 50 years old, it's just over 30 years old, and it is not to be considered for the National Register of Historic Places.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? My comment was there was a bar next door to this place, the Classic. You see that building just to the north was the pay office. So every miner would go to the pay office and he'd come down and he'd cash his check at the Classic. And so there's a lot of history in that block. But, and the Beaver block, it was a fairly outrageous looking building to begin with all the high, it was quite unique. And as things happened in Butte, we had a fire, of course, and it destroyed it.
Okay.
But I think, a friend, Lyle Matthews, did the remodel in the 90s for the Wells Fargo. But I think that first drive-in bank was Northwest, the Norwest Banking. And they went on, it was started as another branch coming into Butte to do Northwest. So I would move that we concur with our Historic Preservations Officer determination that the building at 200 North Main Street is not eligible for listing on the National Historic Register. Do I hear a second? Tracy Miller, hardest working woman in show business, seconded it. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. Now we're moving right along. Any announcements from the group? Hearing none. Any public comment tonight on anything that's not on the agenda?
Josh, you got a public comment?
Hearing none. Any other announcements from the group? Hearing none, I would move that we are adjourned. We are adjourned.